Alright everyone, today I wanted to go over how I acquired over 10,000 blue crystals without spending any money in the game. This is all from in-game resources, and while I am not fully free to play on this account, I haven't spent any money on this game or spent any orange crystals since the first couple of days of launch. All 10,551 of these blue crystals were acquired through in-game methods of farming gold and then converting that gold in the crystal exchange to blue crystals without any real money involved. And what I wanted to do is go through a list here, and the way that I have this list organized is the first things that I talk about are going to be responsible for the majority of the blue crystals and the gold that I got. And as I go down the list, they're going to be less and less important. And that's why I wanted to start off here with number one, by far, without a doubt, the best way to end up getting gold free to play and the best way to end up getting crystals, blue crystals free to play. Something that you absolutely do not want to miss, and it's super, super important because this 5 to 10 minute task at the absolute most is going to be responsible for a massive amount of the blue crystals that I actually got. And that is going to be your Chaos Gate. And I want to draw attention to a very important thing that actually happens on the calendar that I don't think I've actually mentioned before in any of my videos. And so when you actually end up seeing your Chaos Gate on your calendar, very important, you want to make sure to end up doing at least one of those per day. You can only actually get rewards from one of them per day. But very importantly, the daily reset ends up happening for me at 2 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. And so there are certain days on the calendar that you actually want to be on the lookout for where there's going to be Chaos Gates that actually happen like close to midnight, for example. But then the next day, there's also going to be Chaos Gates, but they only actually happen like a couple hours after the daily reset. And so what I've actually done is I've kind of aligned my schedule in a sense to make sure that I can end up doing a Chaos Gate that happens before the daily reset, and then I can do one that happens right after the daily reset. Because if you actually miss these couple of Chaos Gates that happen on the second day, there's not going to be any more that happen later on. And I think this happened on the 4th of this month. I think there was a good example of this. So you can see, oh yeah, so, okay, so we have this one right here, perfect example. So on the 3rd of this month, you can see that we had Chaos Gates, and they started at 11 o'clock, and they basically went and they ran throughout the entire day. But then on the next day, the Chaos Gates only actually ran for the first few hours of the day. So you had to actually kind of like be active and be playing during the daily reset. And then if you were able to be playing during the daily reset, you were able to snag one of these additional Chaos Gates that happened after the reset before they disappeared. Because after 5 o'clock, if you ended up missing this last one, there's no more Chaos Gates that day, and you can't end up getting the reward. So not only doing your Chaos Gates, but also timing them very well to make sure that you can get all available Chaos Gates, even on weird days like this, where they only actually happen for a couple hours after the reset. So that's going to be responsible for a massive amount of the gold and the blue crystals that I ended up getting. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is something that I have mentioned before, but it's a big deal, and it's only actually getting bigger, and that is trade skills. And very specifically, one trade skill in particular is big, big money, and that is going to be your excavating. And actually, there's two things that you could actually do with the resources. You don't even necessarily need to end up selling them on the market. What you can do is you can end up selling your excavating resources. And I actually highly highly recommend that you convert your gray resources to green resources before you sell them, because you're going to end up getting a little bit more gold. I just found that this has generally been the case. It feels like people don't know how to convert their resources yet. So just a little bit of extra money if you do decide to end up selling them. But what you can also end up doing is you can decide to end up crafting your maps in your strongholds. And if we actually go to the stronghold menu here, I'll show you guys the maps that you want to craft. And now as I'm in tier 3, I'm only really crafting the tier 3 maps. But if we go to the workshop here and you end up going to special, you can see it's going to be these archaeology maps. Now, I already have a video talking about this in detail. Some people feel like they're not worth it. I've run probably about 80 to 100 of these by now, and I can tell you that I definitely do feel like they're worth it. But if you want to end up selling your resources from archaeology instead on the market and just get that guaranteed gold, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you want to take a little bit of a gamble and end up running these maps. Now, for the Phaeton and below maps, the resources that you get are going to be bound, so be careful. Now, it's still very useful if you want to actually use them to improve your gear. Super, super useful. But the resources from the Punica map, I actually noticed that like the Solar Blessings, the Solar Graces are unbound, so you can actually end up selling those on the market. I don't know why this is the case. It's very weird that tier 2 and lower is bound and tier 3 is not. But definitely another huge reason why I've been able to accumulate over 10,000 blue crystals without spending any money has been from archaeology, and also either selling the resources on the market or converting them into maps and then running the maps, and for tier 3 selling those resources. So that's next up on the list right there. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is a pretty typical one, Chaos Dungeons. Absolutely make sure that you're doing your Chaos Dungeons every single day. You could decide whether you want to sell the resources or not, but still, even if you don't, it's going to be a decent chunk of money. And also alts. Now, I want to talk about this for a second because surprisingly, my alts have not been responsible for a massive amount of my income. It's still probably been like 10, 15, 20% or so, but the majority of the money that I've actually been making in almost all of the 10,551 blue crystals that I actually have been from my main character, almost all of them. Now, alts are still nice, and I like to play alts to kind of get a nice change of pace. I've got a Bard at 840, and then all my other alts are at 340 right now. I highly recommend that if you want to get just a little jump in gear and get the next ability stone, that you take your alts that are 300 to 340 and then just kind of park them at 340 and run the 340 Chaos Dungeon. My tier 2 alt is parked at 840 for the same reason right there, but I'll do alts to get a change of pace, a little bit of money, but it's relatively little compared to how much money for the blue crystals that I've actually ended up making on my main character. But, you know, still 10-20% is not too bad. So that's the next thing right there. Now, another one is, very importantly, just keep up to date with other stuff on your calendar. These are all things that are really easy to forget about, like field bosses. Are probably responsible for a couple percent of the income that I got in order to end up getting those 10,000 blue crystals. So whenever you have your field bosses that are going, make sure to end up running one of these. Each data that's available, your adventure islands, your ghost ships, just generally all the stuff that you know, is going to have a limit of once per day that you have to kind of keep an eye on the calendar for. And then the last thing that I want to mention is actually another pretty big one, probably also responsible for around 10% or so of the gold in order to end up getting 10,000 of these blue crystals. And that is selling stuff on the auction house. Not necessarily the market, but the auction house. This is going to be your gear, your ability stones, and your accessories. And I can tell you that I've been making quite a bit of gold selling accessories lately. And I actually have one here that just sold you know, a day or so ago. I kept it here just as an example so you guys could see. But certain tier 3 accessories, if you know what to look for, are selling for well over 1,000 gold. I'm selling several of these a day for 200, 300, 400 gold each. This was a very big one. This is a big example here that sold for like 1,500 gold. And I'm going to make an entire separate video talking about this in detail so you guys know what to look for specifically on your tier 3 accessories to know what they end up selling for. But a really, really big one, and I'll just give you guys as a little bit of a teaser for that video. If you get a tier 3 accessory that has one of your class engravings on it, so for me that would be Igniter or Reflux, whatever class it is. If you get an accessory, even if the stats are bad and even if the quality is bad, that accessory is probably going to sell for at least something. And as an added bonus, if it has high quality and it has good stats, then it's going to sell for a lot. And that gives you that combination that allows you to end up getting accessories that sell for like 1,000 to 2,000 gold, like you see right here. So just keep an eye out. Don't just automatically dismantle all your accessories because they're going to be responsible for a very good chunk of your gold. And yeah, that's pretty much all the methods here that I ended up using in order to get the gold to then end up going to the market here. Go to the currency exchange, and you know, I have plenty of videos talking about this in detail, so you guys have seen it all already, but end up basically buying all these blue crystals with gold and not with money. And just so you guys can see, I don't have any orange crystals. I haven't had any orange crystals or spent any orange crystals since the first couple of days of the game. All the resources that I've been making and earning in the game have been free to play, and I probably anticipate that it's going to stay that while because I don't really honestly see any reason to spend money on this game at this current point. It's just, I don't have a problem with it. You guys are welcome to spend your money however you like, but I just don't feel like it's worth spending money in Lost Ark right now in the current state of the game. It's just way too darn expensive. So I'd much rather be doing the things that I'm doing to get this stuff free to play friendly. So anyway, that's going to be it for the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you did, consider leaving a quick like. Consider subscribing to the channel for more videos like this in the future. And feel free to check out the Twitch stream at twitch.tv/salt, where I'll be live streaming Lost Ark as well as other games. Thanks again, everyone. Take care, and until next time.